Hi, welcome to another edition of the Alan Rosenberg Show. When I started my channel 2 years ago in 2021, I started a series, and you can actually find it under my playlist as a playlist called Favorite and Best Albums. And what I do is I look back every 10 years and show you a good selection of albums that came out that year, and then I show you my favorites, and I kind of rank them, I guess. I am up to, so we're in 2023, and this year so far I did 1973, 1983, 1993, 2003, and I took a little break, and now we're going to do 10 years ago, which was 2013. So it's kind of interesting. So just to throw you some numbers, in 1973, I own 139 albums that came out in 1973. In 1983, I own 124 albums. 2003, 117 albums. Are you ready for this? In 2013, albums that came out in 2013, I only own 27 albums. That's it. 27 albums I own that came out in 2013. So you're probably going to say, well, you got older, you stopped buying records. Nah. I actually bought 122 albums in 2013. It's just that only 27 of them came out that year. So I guess my tastes are a little bit more selective. I tend to lean towards the older stuff that I grew up with and like. And of course, the bands that I love just don't release a lot of albums anymore. But with that said, in 2013, out of the 27 albums I got that came out that year, I had some really good stuff. And that's what you have here. What I have here is 17 of my favorite albums that came out in 2013. And I'm going to rank them. And you'll let me know what you think, and let me know what I missed, because God knows I missed a lot, right? I'm sure you have a ton of stuff out there. So let's start at number 17, basically. Well, actually, let's start with two of them that really not even going to rank. The Beatles came out with another collection, this one called On Air Live at the BBC Volume 2, and of course this was a sequel to their very successful 2-CD BBC recordings. And I like them. It's always good to have, I'm a completist when it comes to the Beatles, except for the deluxe stuff. But this is the kind of thing, at least for me, that I listen to a couple times and then file it away. But it was a nice sequel to that BBC box. Another album that came out that year that I thought was kind of good, and this was a big concert they did in Madison Square Garden, the concert for Sandy, and this was a 2-CD live set. And it was a great concert and a great set list, and you can see it right there. Springsteen and Roger Waters and Adam Sandler and Bon Jovi and Clapton, the Stones, Alicia Keys, The Who, Billy Joel, Chris Martin, Paul McCartney, and Alicia Keys. It's a good live album for sure. Gotta say, being one of the biggest worldwide Rolling Stones fans, the Stones were just okay that night. They did You Got Me Rockin', You Jumpin' Jack Flash, and they were just good. The Who were killer, Billy Joel was killer, and Springsteen Land of Hope and Dreams is great. But it's a good collection. Good collection that I don't listen to too often, but good to have. Let's go on. So that's 17, 16. So this is like number 15, and this is a band called Blackfield. I don't know if you know who they are, but Steven Wilson from Porcupine Tree and other bands, and he's a great solo artist, and of course he's the king of remastering progressive rock albums. He formed a band with an Israeli artist, their number one artist called Aviv Geffen, and they did a band called Blackfield. Now, if you want two incredible albums, and I mean incredible progressive melodic albums, you got to check out the first Blackfield album and the second one. They're equally amazing. They were top 3 albums for me when they came out. Blackfield, Steven Wilson, and Aviv Geffen, the Israeli artist. But those were very much collaborative albums. Blackfield 4 came out in 2013, and Steven Wilson really didn't have too much to do with this album, and it shows. It's good, but it's not even in the same league as the other ones. I think the best songs on here were probably like Faking and maybe Firefly. But this is not an album I would go to. If you want to investigate another side of Steven Wilson, check out Blackfield and Blackfield 2. So number 15, Blackfield 4. At number 14, Dido, who I was a big fan of. I love her first 2 albums. The third one was good. This was a 4th album called Girl Who Got Away. Maybe I need to listen to this again. This album just underwhelmed me. It just didn't do too much for me. And certainly wasn't nearly as popular for here in the United States. Dido, Girl Who Got Away. I may lose track here. What am I? 17, 16, 15. I was 14. At number 13, well, I'm going to go with Elton John and the Diving Board. Elton John, at that point, for me, had been on a great roll. Songs from the West Coast was amazing. He just was putting out some great stuff. He did the Union album with Leon Russell. Then he put out this one. I was really excited for it because he was really on a roll. As you can see, there's a lot of tracks on this album. I appreciate what he did, but it's a very uncommercial album and kind of samey and kind of moody and it's a solid listen, but I just kind of felt it was lacking in hooks. And after I'm done listening to all of these songs, including all these bonus tracks, it just left me underwhelmed. And to this day, I just don't go back to it much. So The Diving Board from Elton John, certainly not a bad album, but it didn't compare to the albums that came previously, in my opinion. After that, I got Paul McCartney New. This is the deluxe edition. Of course, McCartney at that point in his career really started doing multiple issues to get you people and me to buy so you can get better chart positions. This album came with, I don't know what this is, a luggage tag and a nice book and a bunch of photos. And at the end of the day, to me, it's about the songs. There's a lot of producers on this album. There's a hidden track. I think it was called Scarred, if I remember right. Another album that very much left me underwhelmed. I didn't like the production of it. I found the drums muted. The whole kind of sound was muted. And the weird thing is, it's got a lot of producers on this album. So I give McCartney credit. He's always on the cutting edge to a certain extent. He wants to do different things. And this album did have some different sounds and different producers. But at the end of the day, I was like, where's the songs that stick in my head? I mean, Appreciate was interesting. Everybody Out There is a good kind of a tune. But at the end of the day, the rest of it, On My Way to Work, Queenie Eye, I guess was the so-called hit, and that song didn't do much for me either. So there you go. New comes next. What do we got? 17 and 16, 15, 14, 13, 12. Let's go to, I guess, number 11, and that's going to be Boston. And this was the album Life, Love, and Hope from the band that takes decades to release an album. And this album, I just didn't get it because he put so many years and so much time to it. Different singers, but that's okay. Brad Delp was on maybe a couple of the tracks. This album to me sounds like a bunch of demos. It just doesn't have a great production to it. The guitars are good. Heaven on Earth's a good track. There's some good songs on here. Didn't Mean to Fall in Love. Someone came from the previous album, and maybe I'm the only one in the world who really, really likes that previous album, Corporate America. I just think that's a really good Boston album. But this one, unfortunately, didn't do much for me. So there you have it, Boston and Life, Love, and Hope. Another progressive band that had reformed, and this I think was their fourth album after they reformed. A favorite band of mine from the 70s was Nectar. Interesting lineup. Roy Albrighton, the guitarist and lead singer and main songwriter, he's in the band with Ron Houghton, the original drummer. So nice to have the two guys, original members in the band. But check out who else was in the band for this album. You got Billy Sherwood on bass. Now, Billy Sherwood, if you're a Yes fan, you would know him. He's a producer. He's a multi-instrumentalist. He's played in Yes. And I was really psyched. I'm like, he's going to be playing in Nectar. That's interesting. This could be really good. And what I found with this album was it's kind of a mishmash. I mean, it's like some of it's a little progressive. Now, Nectar's a really progressive band in the 70s and a great one. Some of it's progressive. Some of it is very kind of album-oriented rock. And I'm like, who's this appealing to? I don't really know. It's not like they're going to get play even then in 2013. Don't know what they were shooting for. But with that said, there's a couple of really good songs. Juggernaut almost is like an instrumental. Reminds me of like Santana. It's really good. Diamond Eyes is a good track that's kind of like Classic Nectar. But then you look at like a thing called Tranquility right there, which is very progressive. Kind of even has, to me, they took some looks, it sounds like, from Remember the Future, which is their best and most famous album. And then right when you think it's going to take off, they fade it out and it goes into like an AOR track. So it's not a bad album, Time Machine. It's just not a very great one. But it's good to have them back. In the same genre, the next in line is Fish. He was the singer, of course, of Marillion. He's had a really interesting career. And this, I thought, was a really good record as well, A Feast of Consequences. This is an interesting mixture, you know, better than the Nectar album in the sense that he's got some really highly progressive stuff, like Highwood is a whole musical suite that's very progressive. And then you got a couple of tracks that are very, you know, melodic and almost popish. His voice is strong. It's a good record. If you don't know who Fish is from Marillion, this is not an album that I would start with. I would still do his first album, Vigil. But it's a fine release. Good job from Mr. Fish. Next up, I would have the Avett Brothers, another album that was produced by Rick Rubin. He did a fine job. The only problem that I had with this album is so similar to the one that came before. They're actually sister albums, and the Carpenter. And so I love that album. This album just, and it really is, it's a sister album. They really go together. So it's not that the songs are lacking. It's not that the performances are lacking. At least for me, it is kind of like only so much that I could take from them. But I like the way they threw in a live version there of Souls Like the Wheels and you know, Morning Song and Never Been Alive. It's a really good record. If you like that, you know, it's like sitting on a porch and listening to guys playing acoustic music and singing, and the songs are all good and put you in a good mood. That's the Avett Brothers, and they were real successful. I know they sold at Madison Square Garden. Magpie and the Dandelions. So what are we up to right now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. We got 7 albums left. Let's go into the number 7 of the year for me in 2013 was Beth Hart. Bang Bang Boom Boom. Don't yell at me. Some of you fans are going to say, no, that came out in 2012. Well, in a way you are right, but then they reissued this album in 2013, and if you look on it, it says 2013, and the reason why is they put a bonus track, the live version of I'd Rather Go Blind, live from the Kennedy Center Honors, and it was a good idea to do that because it's the best track on this album. It's an amazing performance. This is an interesting album. I'm a big fan of Beth Hart. I remember when she first came out. And this album, when you look at it, is exactly what it looks like. You know, she really was getting her act together, changed her look, straightened herself out. That's all great. Singing great. She just looks different. And instead of that real rawness of those early albums from Beth Hart, well, you get this more polished look and more polished sound. But that's okay. It's a really well-produced album. It sounds great. The drums are monstrous on here. The guitars sound great. And it's a more mature. There's some jazzy, bluesy stuff. The songs all work. You know, the title track's real good. Baddest Blues is like a jazzy blues track. The Ugliest House on the Block, great track. It's a fine record. It's not the old Beth Hart for sure. It's a more mature, more stylish, more well-produced Beth Hart, but she still sings phenomenal. Good release. Number 6. Right? 1, 2, 3. Number 6 on my list is Eminem. And this is the Marshall Mathers 2 album. Love the cover. This is the deluxe edition. There is his house. He went back to it and was going to be demolished soon, just in disrepair. And Eminem, this is a... I don't know how the hell he does it. I'm going to show you something. This is the booklet from it. These are his lyrics, by the way. If you eat one song. I don't know how a guy can write so many lyrics. You know, you think about your pop and rock stars, and the amount of lyrics in a song is, you know, a couple of verses and a chorus. I don't know how he writes so much of such a high quality. It's actually amazing to me. When he performs live, how the hell does he remember all of this stuff? I have no idea. So I take my hat off to him. Some people have said he's the Bob Dylan of his generation, and I wouldn't argue with that. I could believe it. The problem that I have with Eminem on this album and others, he just puts too much stuff on here. It's overwhelming. It's just like 79 minutes long, and there's a bonus disc on top of that. But I like the way he raps. I like the way he throws in, samples of stuff. Joe Walsh, Life's Been Good, Billy Squier, The Stroke. Those are all parts of these songs. The Monster with Rihanna. That's a great track. Rhyme or Reason is interesting because it's the music of time of the season, but Rhyme or Reason. The Zombies classic, Rod Argent. A lot of great tracks on here. Some of the songs not so great. But yeah, it's a really good record. Headlights was really cool. The only problem I have with it, for me, is it's just too damn long. I mean, he wears me down. But in shorter doses, yeah, what a talent. So there you have it. At number 5 for me is the band called Suede. And after they reformed, they've been on a roll, putting out some great stuff. I left a sticker on there because I happened to bought this in England at Flashback Records. But this is their album called Bloodsport, and they're just such a great band. This is a really cool album. I like it so much. I even have a deluxe edition over here with a DVD. This is from Japan with a DVD documentary. But they're just a really good band. Brett Anderson's the lead singer. He's got an interesting voice, maybe an acquired taste. But musically, they're a mixture of great Bowie, great Brian Ferry, and Roxy Music from their latter days. You want to give them a shot, check out that song called Snowblind. It Starts and Ends With You is a great track too, but Snowblind, if you don't like Snowblind, then you will not like them. A lot of their stuff is very moody, like great soundscape. It sounds great on my stereo when I crank it up. This is like a 360-degree sound, and it just sucks you in. But this is a moody, dark album. Doesn't always rock, but Snowblind really rocks. So check that one out for the strangers. It's a terrific listen. This is Bloodsports from Suede at number 5 for 2013. Number 4, well, it's going to be Bob Dylan from the Bootleg Series, number 10. And I think his Bootleg Series is, the greatest ongoing reissue series there is. He's just got an amazing team doing it, and they're doing an incredible job. Another Self-Portrait, which is his music from 1969 to 1971. You're talking about Nashville Skylines, and of course Self-Portrait was the album that they released, and New Morning. And I can't believe what a great listen this is. It goes way beyond just archiving stuff and seeing how he put stuff together. This was the original Self-Portrait album. And I'd say in the history of Rolling Stones records, this album and the first Uriah Heep album, where the critic said, if this band makes it, I'll have to kill myself. Probably this album and that are the 2 worst reviews ever issued in that magazine. So when you play this Bootleg Series, it just sounds so great. It's such a good listen. I love this album. The Bootleg Series, another Self-Portrait. It's just great. Some of the stuff has, overdubs. Some of them are not overdubbed. His voice has different styles, but it always sounds great. Killer Collection. My number 4 album of the year from 2013. Another Self-Portrait from Bob Dylan. My number 3 album, the great Jason Isbell, and this was his first album that I ever got as a solo artist, Southeastern. Of course, he's from Drive-By Truckers. Funny thing was, when he was in Drive-By Truckers, I was really into Drive-By Truckers, but he was my favorite part of the band, no offense, Patterson Hood. When the Jason Isbell's tracks came on, I was like, it just took them to another level. When he went solo, I kind of lost it to a certain extent for Drive-By Truckers. This was his first album that I got as a solo artist, Southeastern, and it's terrific. It's very mellow. His latest stuff mixes it up a little bit better, but it's so good. If you want to hear one of the most powerful songs of your life, check out Elephant. It's a song about a friend of his dying of cancer, and it's the elephant in the room, not being able to talk about it, and in lines like, even though you have family, you die alone. It's really powerful, but Super 8's a rockin' track. I love this album. Again, it's a little bit on the mellow side. But it's just terrific. Great record from Jason Isbell, Southeastern, my number 3 album. My number 2 album of the year was David Bowie. And the next day, I was as shocked as anybody when they released this album. He dropped it unannounced. I thought he was on a real roll. I loved his previous albums. Heathen, Reality, the one that came before that was also terrific. But they weren't huge hits. And when he dropped this, I was like, oh, this is going to be interesting. I hated the cover. Yeah, I know, it's a knockoff of The Heroes. I just didn't get it the next day. But when I listened to this album, I really liked it, even from the get-go. This was the longer edition. There's different editions of it. Problem I have with it, even to this day, it's just too damn long. But it's really good. It started off a little quirky. The next day, to me, I don't know. It actually reminded me like an outtake of from the Heroes album, which I guess was the goal of it. It actually sounds kind of like Beauty and the Beast in my ears. But some of the tracks, Dirty Boys took me a little while to grow, but Where Are We Now, which was that great video, that was an amazing song. Valentine's Day was amazing. I'd Rather Be High. The whole album eventually grew on me. It's not an immediate album, but it really did grow on me, and I love it. I still listen to it. The Next Day from David Bowie. Tony Visconti produced it with him, which is, they go way, way back. My number 1 album of the year of 2013 is probably going to shock you, but it's the one I played the most, and I really like it. And that's the Sheryl Crow album that came out that year. And this album was a stiff. It did not do well for her. It was a little controversial, It was her Nashville album. It's her country album. I get it, but I don't really get it because, listen, Sheryl Crow's always got a lot of twang in her. And she always has that southern country rock, Yeah, she changed the look there, made it a little bit more cleaner, possibly. But it's not that different from any of her other albums, except that all the songs are really good. Shotgun, Easy's great. Give It To Me, We Ought to Be Drinking is just a really fun country song that if you heard it in a bar, you'd be singing it. We Ought to Be Drinking. Yeah, that's like a country track for sure. But Waterproof Mascara is a great track. Crazy Ain't Original. What a fun song that is. Just another song that gets stuck in your head. I like every song on it. My favorite song is a thing called Homecoming Queen, which is a heavy-duty song, but, talking about like when you're in high school and you're at the top of your game and you're the homecoming queen or you're the football star, and then what happens if your life is downhill after that, Great song. She really is the real deal. Stay at Home Now, Mother is another great track. I love this album. I love Sheryl Crow, but this one got lost for her. I think she even kind of ignores it to this day. Her Nashville country album, but she shouldn't. It's a really good album. My number 1 album from 2013. So there you go. Number 1, Sheryl Crow, Feels Like Home. Number 2, Bowie, The Next Day. Number 3, Jason Isbell, Southeastern. Number 4, another self-portrait from Dylan. Number 5, Suede and Bloodsports. Number 6, Eminem, Marshall Mathers 2. Number 7, Beth Hart, Bang Bang Boom Boom. Number 8, The Avett Brothers, Magpie and Dandelion. Number 9, A Feast of Consequences from Fish. Number 10, Nectar, Time Machine. Number 11, Boston. What the hell was the name of this one? Life, Love, and Hope. I think we're counting this right. Number 12, McCartney New. Number 13, Elton John, The Diving Board. Number 14, Dido, Girl Who Got Away. Number 15, Blackfield 4. And then 16, 17, The Beatles, Live at the BBC Volume 2. And that 12-12-12 Concert for Sandy is a fun listen as well. So hope you enjoyed this. Let me know what your choices are. In this case, pretty good stuff. From 2013. Please check out my other videos. Favorite and best albums is the playlist, and you're going to see 1971 and 1981 and 72 and 82 and then 73, 73, 83, 93, 2003, now 2013. I'll keep doing those. It's kind of a fun series. Thanks for watching. Thanks for checking out. Please hit like. Most importantly, to help me out, help my channel to grow, please hit subscribe. I'm getting close to 1,000 subscribers. I can taste it. And that would be a milestone, I guess. So that would help. And if I hit 1,000 subscribers, I'm going to do something different. I will show you the Alan Rosenberg archives, which is behind that door. I have 5,000, more than 5,000 albums, and a lot of people are like, I'd like to see him. Well, I'll give you a tour of my basement. It's dark and gloomy, and I can't film down there, but I'll show you. It looks like a record store. Thanks for tuning in. I will see you next time on the Alan Rosenberg Show.